Hello students, today we are going to discuss another topic which is in the application of specific energy. How is the specific energy equation that you have derived can be used for various purpose. So the specific energy equation that you derive can be used for two major purposes. The first one are the width contraction and the second one are called hump. So what happens is in a channel flow, if you see for example a river channel or a canal section, there can be two types of transformation, right? The channel section can be broadly transformed into two sections or two different types. The first one can be the width of the section or the width of the channel can be expanded or contract, right? For example, if the bed width, yeah, you understand the bed width, if the bed width remains constant but the width of the channel reduces, like you can see in this given figure, if the channel bed remains constant and the width reduces and then expands, or it keeps on reducing and then becomes constant, so this is a transformation where what is happening is the width of the channel is contracting, or you can see there can be a expansion also. For example, you can see in this section the width of the channel was b1 and it reduces to b2, right? Now this can be in a single section, that is the b1 width and the b2 width, or it can be in a composite form of sections where b1 can alter to reduced size b2 and then it can become b3, or anything that can be equal to b1 or cannot be equal to b1, right? That what by this I mean to say is that the channel's width with the bottom remaining constant can be altered at different sections, and the concept of specific energy can be used to analyze this section. Also, the second type is of the hump. Very simple example of hump that I can explain to you is that, for example, there is a channel in which water is flowing, and soil or some lump is being continuously deposited over the bottom of the channel. In that case, what happens is there is a vertical contraction. The width contraction is basically a horizontal contraction in the width of the channel, or the hump, which we call, is what we say can say is a vertical contraction in the height of the channel. That means there can be two major type of transformation in a channel section. The one in which the bottom width remains constant, but what happens is the width of the channel section is reduced, or it can also expand, right? And the second type of contraction is in the vertical direction, in which the depth of the flow available for the water to flow is reduced in the form of a hump. So there are two main conditions, the width contraction and the hump. These conditions can be analyzed by using the concepts of specific energy, and it is assumed that due to these width contraction or the hump, the energy losses are considered as negligible, or these, so that these flows can be analyzed by treating the specific energy constant, right? So the accelerating flow may be caused by reduction in channel width or the rise in bed level or hump. Also in the vertical direction there can also be scoring of the bed, so that the width can also expand, but the major cases are the width contraction or the hump, right? So in all these conditions we can use the concept of a specific energy by keeping the specific energy in such type of flow as constant, right? And when the specific energy is left constant, there can be two major condition, also critical flow condition. The first condition can be the subcritical condition, and the second condition will be the supercritical condition. Depending upon the type of flow, we have to see both these condition for width contraction and for hump. So consider this figure that I have shown to you. What is happening is the width at the section 1 is b1, and it gradually reduces to b2 at the section 2, right? Floor level remaining the same, that is what we can say is this is not a case of a vertical contraction, but this is a case of a horizontal contraction. So in the case of horizontal contraction, or even in the case of hump, what we have suggested is to keep the energy losses at section 1 and 2 as negligible, right? So if q1 and q2, I have also told you about the difference between small q and capital Q. The capital Q is the total flow from that section, and small q1 and small q2 are unit discharges, right? So if q1 and q2 are the unit discharges at section 1 and 2 respectively, so we have two approaches for solving this type of problem. The first is our subcritical approach. What is happening in the subcritical approach is I have shown you how to draw a specific curve diagram. So the value of depth at 1 and 2 can be found out from that diagram only, right? So if the depth at 1, that section 1, which you can see on the left of your screen, is h1, and at 2 the depth will be less than at h1 but greater than hc, because what we are considering is the subcritical approach. When we are considering the supercritical approach, the width would be lesser than the critical depth, right? So if the depth at h1 is at section 1 is h1, and at 2 the depth will be less than h1, but it will always be more than hc, that is your critical depth, because we are considering the subcritical approach, right? So you can see this figure, and now we will move on. Consider a frictionless horizontal channel of width b1 carrying a discharge capital Q at depth h1. Similarly, at section 2 the width changes to b2, capital B2, by smooth transition, that is there is no losses of energy, right? So if there is no loss of energy between section 1 and section 2, we can easily say that energy at section 1 would be equal to energy at section 2 would be equal to energy at critical point, that is the E1 is equal to E2 is equal to EC, right? So we know by the equation of specific energy, E1 is equal to H1 plus V1 square by 2G, that would be equal to H2 plus V2 square upon 2G, because there is no losses in the energy. Now if we analyze these by unit flow, small q, as you all know, small q is equal to Q upon B. So Q1 would be equal to Q upon B1, and Q2 would be equal to Q upon B2, right? So B2 is less than B1, right? Why is B2 less than B1? Because we have considered a case of contraction, right? You can see here B2 is lesser than B1. So when B2 is equal less than B1 and Q1 is equal to Q upon B1, so when the denominator is smaller, right? The smaller the denominator, the value higher the value of Q1. So when I say that B2 is lesser than B1, then we can easily say that what is happening is Q2 will always be greater than Q1. Now in the energy and depth diagram, with Q as the third parameter, the point P, you can see in this figure, the point P is corresponding to depth H1. You can see in this figure the point P which is on the top, which is on the curve for Q1 is higher, and the point R which is for Q2 is on the lower side. Point P corresponds to the height H1 and point R corresponds to the height H2, right? But since the energy is constant, E1 is equal to E2, that means that R will be in exactly vertically downward to the point P. That is because the energy at section 1 and section 2 is constant, but there is a difference in small q. That means what is happening is that P and R would fall on the same line, but on the different positions, right? So R will be vertically exactly downwards to P. So as more as we reduce the value of in Q2, if the value of B2 becomes even lesser, the value of Q2 becomes even higher, right? So if B2 becomes very small, such that B2 becomes B minimum, the Q2 will be maximum, right? Smaller the B2, higher the value of small q2, as you can see from the equation. So this condition where Q2 will be maximum, this condition will be called the critical condition for the given value of specific energy, right? And the depth at this point would be called as the critical depth. So the third curve that you can see is the maximum value of Q, right? So we have three different values of Q. First is the Q1, which corresponds to capital Q upon B1, and then the second is directly below it, which would be Q upon B2. And when the value of B2 becomes minimum, the value of Q becomes maximum. So the third curve that you can see on the right of your screen is the curve for QM, that is the maximum value of Q, right? So this depth is called your critical depth, right? So up to now what we are doing is we are considering the only subcritical approach to this, right? So for a rectangular channel section, for the ease of calculation, you know the critical depth for rectangular section, you have the equation for that, HC is equal to 2 by 3 EC, right? Where what is EC? EC is the specific energy at the critical depth, right? And HC is the critical depth. But since E1 is equal to EC, we can write H2 is equal to HC, right? Is equal to 2 by 3 EC. But since EC is equal to E1, we can write H2 is equal to 2 by 3 E1, right? On the bottom of the screen you can see this transformation, that HC's value that for a rectangular channel that we have driven in the previous video is 2 by 3 EC. Now when E1 is equal to EC, so for a height H2 is equal to HC, right? Because what is happening is that H2 is getting reduced to HC for the subcritical condition. So H2 is equal to HC will be equal to 2 by 3 EC, right? But E1 is equal to EC because we are considering that the specific energy will remain constant throughout. So we can easily write H2 is equal to 2 by 3 E1, right? But we also know that the critical depth can also be given by Q square by G, small q square by G to the power 1 by 3, right? Now in the at critical point, this Q can be written as Q by BC, right? So Q by BC का whole square into 1 by G whole to the power 1 by 3. So we can find that H cube C is equal to capital Q square upon B square C into G, right? But we have also calculated the value of H cube C, or we can say that we have calculated the value of HC, that you can see on the bottom of your screen. We have calculated the value of HC as 2 by 3 E1. So H cube C would become equal to 2 by 3 E1 का whole cube, ठीक, is equal to capital Q square upon B square C into 1 upon G, right? So from here we can find out the value of BC, that is the width of the section at critical point, right, as equal to 1.84 capital Q divided by under root G E1 to the power 3 by 2, right? If B2 is less than BC, then Q2 will be larger than Q max, which is not possible. You can see in the figure, in this figure you can see that what is happening is that at point R, B2 had some value. This value kept reducing, right? And it reduced to a point where B2 was minimum, right? So when B2 was minimum, if it is further reduced, then the subcritical condition of flow is not possible, right? Stream condition subcritical will not be possible. That means B2 cannot be less than BC for a subcritical flow. Now the depth H1 increases to H1 dash, so the new specific energy becomes E1 dash is equal to H1 dash is equal to Q square upon 2G B1 square H1 dash का whole square, right? Which will be just sufficient to cause critical flow at point 2. That is, this H1 and H2 are corresponding to the critical depth now. ठीक है, तो now we will have the critical depth for this channel section as H dash C, right? we can write the values of Q as Q dash, and then we can find the value of specific energy as E dash C is equal to H dash C plus V square C upon 2G, or critical depth in second case we can find out as 3 by 2 H dash C. Since B2 is less than BC, H dash C will be larger than HC, right? And E1 dash equal to E1 C, E dash C is equal to 3 by 2 H dash C. Thus, even though critical flow prevails for all B2 less than BC, the depth at section 1 is not constant, but it increases as H1 dash, and hence E1 dash rises. With every rising value of H1 dash, E1 dash will keep on rising. This variation of H1, H2 and E with B2 by B1 can be shown in this figure, right?